Welcome back, fellow Scrubs. This is Mark D. Wiz. We skipped a week last week. And a bit of a... If you were here for the gameplay stream that weekend on Sunday, you'll know what happened. The branches came down, power went out, and Monday we didn't have power, so we didn't have Pocket Fighter EX, unfortunately. But we're back, and everything's all set and ready to go. So, let's get into it. We're gonna go over how the Cara EX moves go, because that was interesting to set up. It wasn't very straightforward. So I want to go over that so you guys know how that works. And so what am I talking about, you may be asking? Let's change it. All the characters have been applied with this technique now, so there's no worry about, like, Terry doesn't have it or Ken doesn't have it or whatever. Once I figured it out, it was pretty simple to apply it to everybody. So let's see, we got the input view on, which is going to be important here. Oh wow, it's hard to see those. Hard to see those numbers actually. Let me change that. Let's go to a night version of that stage. I think that will be a little bit better on the eyes. Okay. Oh yeah, that's much better. Okay, so what is a Cara activation in general? So a Cara activation, it's FGC lingo. It can mean many things, but most people use it in the context of, say I press a punch button, I want to cancel that punch into grab, and you can do that within the first couple frames. They call it a cara-cancel, or just a cara, which apparently means cancel in Japanese, so if you say cara-cancel, you're just saying cancel. It's more noticeable on some moves than others. So if you kick, you can go to the first 2 frames of the kick, and then you can transition into a grab. So why does this exist? Some of the games have it and some of them don't. And to be completely honest, it's just to give some input leniency. So if you look at the... Oh, I don't have my spot. Hold on. There, now you can see a little better. If you look at the top left here, you can see that if you press them at the same time, of course you get grab, but you don't have to press them at the same time. They can be off by a frame or 2. Hey, hey! Hey, Jimmy Troy, it's Uncle Roy. I'm staying safe. You don't know, I'm staying safe. I barricaded in. I am staying here. Thank you very much for the bits. So the whole idea of a Cara is to give the player enough time to press both buttons. So of course when you press one button, they go into that move. You can't go back. You can't just not go into the move. But you give them up to 2 frames here. And then if they press the other button, then it does the other move. That's basically the logic. Now, the programming side of it, it depends on what you're doing. You can do this with the max cancels as well. See, there are 2 frames of kick and 1 punch button, and then you go into that. Because it should be on the same frame, but, you know, if you can't hit the buttons at the same time in 1/60th of a second, you shouldn't be punished for that. Apparently I can, but there you go. I did it offbeat there. Hi, this Ken have any Street Fighter V moves? Well, that is a good question. Let's switch to Ken and find out. I shouldn't have picked random, and I won't be able to see the... Oh, good, we got the same stage. Alright. You tell me. I think that's a yes. So yeah, I gave him his EX Air Tatsu. And then his Heavy Tatsu from Street Fighter V. I thought they were pretty neat. It was enough to warrant making some new sprites for him. So what I did with this though is I amped it up a little bit. You can do stuff after the bounce. So it's not a straight up reuse of it. Now this is sort of like Ken's EX Tatsu from Street Fighter V. But it's more, honestly, the idea I got was from his Marvel Tatsu. So that's why it's got the kick at the end to spike him down. Like he has that Marvel. So his Tatsus actually go up in angles in Marvel, which I thought was cool. So yeah, he's got a lot of stuff. Alright, he's blocking. So you can do all sorts of fun stuff with Ken. In this build, Ken's a little bit broken in that his crazy kick target combo actually pushes a little too far right now. If I can get it. Oh, hold on. Damn it. I'm screwing it up now. Oh my god, recenter, Zen. Let's go. There we go. So he gets pushed a little too far, and so the special cancel doesn't always connect. That's I'm gonna have to remedy. But that's an animation issue right now with Unity, where it's not letting me change the positions right in the animation, and I'm not sure why it's doing that. So until I figure that out, I can't really address that so much. But yeah, anyway, so Ken's got the car stuff too, so we can just stay right here with him. So here's the idea with, you can take that concept of, you've got 2 frames, oh, wrong button. You got 2 frames to get into grab. Well, why don't we do that? Because the EX requires 2 buttons, right? So there's down, forward, and 2 punches. We don't want that to be strict either, so we can press light punch for 2 frames and then heavy punch, and the EX comes out instead of the normal. But notice, let me turn the frame view on too, or frame info, so you can see the frames of animation that are counting down. So we've got PC 1, 2, 3, and he's got his hands back 4, 5, 6. So count here, 1, 2, now to 3. Now the EX spark activates. Notice that the animation did not start over. It did not have to go back to frame 1 and 2. It went straight to frame 3. It actually translates, or transitions rather, the animation. Think of like 2 parallel roads and 2 cars are running along it, or 1 car's running along the right side of the road, and then when the EX activates, you just move it to the left side of the road and it continues on. It's a little more complicated than that, but that's the basic idea. If you think of both the animations running at the same time, and then you just swap out the normal Hadouken with the EX Hadouken. But that's not good enough because there's a lot of additional things going on when these moves activate. So let me pull up what I mean here. Let's see. Got a question. Do we have KOF style combo in this game? SA to LA special. SA? SA. What is SA? SA and LA? What's SA and LA? SA plus to LA plus special. Oh, strong attack, light attack. Yeah. It's a little more like Street Fighter in that most of the things are links. Like that's a link. So you have to jab, wait till it clears, and then you can use the crouching strong. And then you can get a combo like that. So you can, of course, cancel from attacks certain ones to specials. So you can do that. There's some target combos. Don't know if Ken's got like a special one where he can do that. But let me change to Terry to better exemplify that kind of stuff. Oh, hello, doggy's here. What do you want? Hi. Cheated. So Terry's got his strong punch, and he's also got his three strong punch is his upper. That's the diagonal down forward. But I made it so that you can do these two in a target combo. That makes sense. So will LBRY have his heavy and then forward A? Maybe? I haven't decided exactly what to do. So I'm not doing a systematic command, or like a normal to command normal cancel. I'm doing it more of like thinking what's the common uses of those, and then translating those into pre-programmed target combos. So it's very likely that that one will make it, but I'd still have to think about it. I haven't really gotten to like the heavy designing phase for LBRY because I'm trying to get the net play and shit working. So you can't just do this and then this. It won't work. But special ones like that gives you a target combo, because that's what you've been able to do in the other games. So a lot of the common ones I'm thinking about implementing. You can also do this, although I changed this one to a link. So it's not a cancel, but it's a link, and you've got to do it off the first one. So I'm thinking about that. You know what I mean? Like I've got that in mind that KO characters can do that, and I want to do some of the common ones, but I don't want to make it a systematic thing. I want to do more of the Capcom-esque version of that. But I think it'd be unfair to translate any of them. I think they have to have that kind of stuff. So Terry, of course, can cancel off of this one too, because he can in other games. And to be honest, it's a good tool, because that thing really pops out there. So you can do some pretty neat stuff. It's not exactly the same as King of Fighters, but you can do quite a lot, actually. At least I think so. See? Like that. So Terry's got a lot of bugs right now, where he will not land all the way. He actually doesn't register as landing, even though he kind of thinks he's landed. So I gotta work those bugs out. But he's, oh, that didn't work. There we go. But he's got some neat stuff. So let's see, I think, yeah. So the only thing that can target combo into the upper is the standing heavy now. And then he's got, of course, his blowback attack, but that's just it's a command normal, so it's not like, you don't hit like, yeah, I guess it would be C and D. Yeah, it's not a CD, because that gives you your max mode in this game. But it's just forward heavy. But like King of Fighters, if you're in armor mode, it gives you armor on it. So you can kind of tank some stuff with certain moves to get people out of your hair. I also made Terry's air CD just his neutral air heavy kick. I felt it was a shame to get rid of that, because a lot of people like using it, to be honest. At least in 98. So he's got a whole bunch of stuff. Anyway, back to cara-cancels activations. So Terry, of course, has them too. So he can turn Power Wave into Round Wave. Terry does not have a fire kick. Terry's got so many moves. I wanted to use Power Charge instead. So they're pretty functionally similar in that fire kick knocks them up in the air for a follow-up. So I just did Power Charge instead. I felt like having them both was a little redundant in that way. Oh, no. Hey, Deku, what's up? So he's got rising tackle, he's got power wave, he's got round wave, which is special cancelable, just like a 98. Got burn knuckle, light heavy EX, crack shoot. Oh, he hit me out of it. Crack shoot, power dunk, and of course power charge, which can go into power dunk. Although I did add crack shoot as an option for power charge, and of course power geyser. Yeah, exactly. It basically does the same thing. You would get this kind of thing off of it anyway, so. And I like power charge, so that's what it ended up being. And EX power charge does that. Oh, wrong one. Nope, wrong one. Hold on. There we go. So this is more of a, oh, yeah, it'll have EX on when you charge it. This is kind of a get out of the corner move. And if you're close to the corner, you can bounce them. And then EX crack shoot is a ground bounce for continued combos. Whoop. Terry's super fun. Love to play him. What's the next batch of content or changes you plan on adding? Well, I just got done renovating the feel of the game, so the current version that's out, and this is applicable to the Kara stuff, the current version that's out has 2 frames of input buffer, and that's what I was using to catch these not quite so well timed simultaneous button presses. I would give you 2 frames to press that second button, but all the actions in the game were held back by 2 frames. And it made it a little laggy. It wasn't the worst thing in the world, but it still wasn't quite as responsive as I wanted. So this new system, it allows you, again, to interrupt a move here. So he's doing normal power wave until you hit that second button, then he transitions to EX power wave, in this case round wave. So by doing that, having all the attacks that need to be interrupted into other actions, like grab, can be done off there. You see these 2 weren't on the same frame, but it still got the grab. You don't need an input buffer anymore. And so the game is 2 frames much more responsive as a result. So this applies to anything like grabs or when you're running into roll. Grab turns into roll when you're running because you can't run, or you can't grab while you run. So that ends up being a roll command. Same thing. You can press them. See? I got them off 1 frame and it still worked. So all those actions now are like that. Same thing with power max. There it goes. I'm so used to hitting them at the same frame. I actually have to try to not do that. Unless I'm in the heat of the moment, sometimes I won't hit them on 1 frame, and that's why it's there. It just gives you a little leniency. So there, I heavy kicked and then did the power max cancel, but they were on different frames. So anything that requires 2 buttons has now been adjusted, and it was quite a bit to get it all set up, to be honest. So I'm glad that it's working out. But the ultimate goal, again, is to make this more responsive, so everything comes out 2 frames faster than the old build. So that's a huge, huge change, and when you play it, you'll notice it. You'll absolutely notice it. Especially when just doing simple things like jumping. It just feels a bit more responsive. So that was a big issue, and I finally fixed all that. So what do I do specifically? Oh yeah, and what's next after that? I guess was really your question. I'm still trying to get the game in shape to plug in GGPO so that we can have good net play with rollback. And we got some rollback code in here already, but unless it's hooked up to GGPO, you know, it doesn't do much good. But part of that comes in making the game more consistent and more deterministic, like we've talked about in previous episodes, where the game has to be consistent. Movement and everything has to be the same distances, the same amount of time on every platform. And that's easier said than done, unfortunately. So I'm still in the process of doing those changes. And I've made a lot of stride on that, but there's still a lot more work to go on that. And that's kind of where I'm headed next to get that. I've got some other stuff. So the fix for Terry to not be off the ground when he thinks he's on the ground, that's going to be a bigger change to the jump code. I've somewhat adjusted Ryu to handle this kind of stuff, but it's not 100% where I need it. It's not 100% consistent, so I do need to do that. And it's just there's a whole bunch of stuff, man. Whole bunch of stuff to get GGPO working, because if it's not consistent across all the computers and any device that you have it running on, what'll happen is something will happen in one game, something will hit or miss in one game where the other person's game, it didn't hit or miss. And then all of a sudden they're desynced, and now you've got a problem. So that net play is just unreliable in that case. It also kind of feeds into having a replay system. So when you have a replay system, the same thing, all it does is it saves the button inputs like you see on the left. It just saves everything the player did with buttons, and that's it. And then it feeds those buttons back into the game. But if something different happens when you press the same buttons or run the same replay, that's bad. Like, then your replay's not going to work, right? So you might have the replay maybe 1 out of 100 times just doesn't work right. It doesn't go to its completion correctly, and that's a big problem. So that's what I'm working on, trying to get the game into that super tight kind of shape that we can just plug GGPO in and it just kind of works. But it's a lot more work than it seems like, and there's a lot of issues still left with that, because Unity is built on a foundation that's not conducive to that. It's not set up to do that kind of consistent simulation. It's not going to, out of the box, allow you to do that. So I'm basically having to rewrite a whole bunch of Unity components to make it rock solid. So, yeah, I can't wait for the next release too, man. And I'm the one making it. And if we can get that net play, that'll be... If I can get it into the shape that it can be into net play, and get the net play working right, like, I'll be super happy. I can't wait to get that out there, because I can't really test the game with people. I mean, you can use Parsec. Some people have used Parsec to play it, but people with low-end connections like mine, it's just not going to work. It's too slow, it's too laggy. It's basically unplayable. If we can get rolled-back netcode in here, then I can actually start testing the game itself and seeing how the characters actually perform, and start to see where the meta's going. And yeah, it's in a super early stage, so I expect there to be a ton of adjustments that need to be made to the characters and glitches to be fixed, but I just don't know what they are, because I can't really test them with anybody, you know what I mean? Not in that kind of like super competitive environment where people are really paying super close attention. So that'll just accelerate everything once that's in there. And then, I'm not programming LBRY right now, because people have been asking about that, because then I would just have to reprogram him again when all these changes are made. So it's kind of like, we'll hold off on that, and then once all these changes are done, then we can just go right into LBRY and add him in, and it will just go. Like, there won't be any redoing at that point. They could just start adding stuff in, and it should just be solid enough to keep going, and then we won't have to break anything or re-break anything. So that's the idea going forward. So this EX, man, those these EXs were a pain, man. I held off on doing these ones, these Cara EXs, until the last, because like, the grab is pretty easy. Like, that's not too bad. You just check to see if the person pressed the second button you know, within the first 2 frames. So if we do white punch, you can see there's his punch animation, and we have a. Oh, let's hit box data. Where's that one? Hold on. Let's zoom in here. See what that's going on. There it is. Cancel window. So this cancel window preset, I'm using an animation event to start that. And basically what this is it says within the first 3 frames. So 0 counts as a frame in this case, which is why it's set to 3. Otherwise it would have to be 2. So anywhere between this key here, the 0, the 1, and the 2, if at any point in time it detects the grab command, the forward or back one, or the roll if you're running, and these commands files will say whether or not they're running only, etc., etc. If in these 3 keyframes it detects one of these things, it will just go into that instead. Now this one does not replace the animation at that time, it just starts the animation. That's one of the key differences between the EX moves and these ones. So if you notice, I hold down punch 1, 2 frames, then kick for 1 frame. Notice he goes back to 1 out of 28 frames. So that animation has restarted. It just literally stopped the punch and started the grab. There's no magic there. It just works like anything else. So if you go up to Ryu and you do a special cancel, it's the same technology behind the scenes. Same thing, where one animation stops and the next animation starts. That was easy enough. There's a couple extra rules in play. So like the roll has a was running activation as well as a is running activation. Because when you run, you're not supposed to be able to grab out of a run punch. Oh, I pressed the wrong button. I pressed heavy. I'm like, that don't look like a pose. So the punch starts here, white punch, 2nd frame, holding down the other button, 3rd frame. And notice he rolls instead of grabs. That's where this comes into. This was running means that it detected that he was running when that punch started. So he needs to do the roll instead. That's one of the special rules. And it's not much more complicated than that. I just stored whether or not that move started while in a run. And that way, when they're not running, you get the grab with the same command. So that was a little bit of trickery. It was something I didn't really think about until I did it. I'm like, uh-oh, it means you can cara grab out of run now. We have to fix that. Let's see, where is... Okay, and then his grab here, we'll do the forward grab. This one only has a standing activation, does not have a run. So it'll detect, it'll say, hey, you were running. The was run flag is activated. But since you don't have running or was running, then this does not allow it to occur in that situation. Because you only have standing. So that's one aspect of it that I had to program that was special. Again, you can't just run up and grab, it will turn into roll. Otherwise you'd get crazy instances where if you press both the white punch, white kick at the same frame, you'll get the roll. But if you press punch 1 frame before, then you'll get a grab instead. So it was a little inconsistent. That had to be ironed out. But again, there's no trickery there for the most part. It's just a move cancel, like a special cancel off of a normal, like you would experience any other time. So where it gets a little crazy we want to go, oh no, I didn't want to go there. I want to go here. We want to look at the start attack that takes in a fighter move command. And so a move command file is like one of these, where it says, hey, here's the conditions it can activate in, here's the button presses that make it active, additional criteria if necessary. So EX moves have a special setup. Let me just pull this over so we can see them all. So let's see, power wave, light, power wave L, L for light. So it's got some additional things. You can do a pre-jump activation, so you can cancel your pre-jump frames into it. Standing, you can do it while running, or while run stopping, and run stopping is just, so I go dash forward, and you'll dash automatically for a few frames, but eventually you'll come to this stop animation where he kind of slows down and goes back to idle. That's the run stop. So he can do power wave out of any of those. There's no meter requirements because it's just normal special, etc, etc. You can turn around before attack. That's more like an autocorrect kind of thing. And here's the button command for it. There's you cannot have, so these spawn objects must not have any power wave heavy or power wave light projectiles on screen. And here's the important one. Here's the one that the Kara comes into play. This is the override moves. So we see that power wave EX is an override move. We go to the heavy version, same thing. So the only difference with the heavy is that its move that it activates is the heavy one, but everything else is the same. Well, I guess the input's a little bit different because it uses the heavy punch. But this override move is for both, of course. And what happens is when the attack is activated, when you activate the Kara, rather, it'll come in and it'll check the attack and it'll say, okay, is this a cancel? Was something else? Basically meaning, was there another animation playing at that time, another move? And say, yeah, it was. And then if it was a cancel, then yeah, this is what prevents you from activating it, Kara activating it in situations that you weren't supposed to. I'll go over that in a minute. That's for like blacklist and whitelist on the cancels. So I set up a boolean to say this activation was an override, so I gotta check, is it a cancel? Yeah. Was the attack that you were currently doing, or the move that you were currently doing, does it have an associated move file? And if yes, we have to check that move file. But actually no, first we check the cancel window to see if overrides are allowed here. So whatever the current cancel window is, we gotta check to see if overrides are actually allowed in this situation. Then we check the move file, check to see what the override moves are, and see whether or not the attack that we're trying to activate is one of those override moves. And if all that checks out, then we say, yeah, that was an override. So the cancel window, I'll show that quick. In this case, it's a common one. Cancel presets, EX override. So I made a new category here for override. So this could be like a block cancel or jump cancel. So I did an override cancel, a condition of at any time it can happen, meaning anytime during the window, and then the window is set to 3 frames. Again, like we were saying, the 0, 1, and 2 keyframes on the animation, those are those 3. And that's it. You actually don't have to worry about the stuff on the bottom. I just added this. As long as those are true, which is what this is checking for, and it's actually in the file here. Where is that? Here. And that's where this override move list is, and so power wave EX is in there. So if we're trying to activate power wave EX, it'll come in and be like, okay, cool, that all checks out, great. So if this was an override, then now we need to check how far into the animation are we. So say we're doing Power Wave Light and we're trying to transition to Power Wave EX. We need to know how far along that animation is, and we store that into a value. This doesn't have anything to do with that. Here, if it was an override, we need to restore the resources from a backup copy. So resources are super meter and max meter. So then you, like in KOF and in most Street Fighter games, when you throw out a special move, be it a Hadouken, Shoryuken, whatever, you do gain a little bit of meter for the activation of that move. And then if it hits, then you gain more meter. And I think KOF does the same thing, at least in the recent games. And by recent, I mean probably anything 98 and above. If it's not an override move, you're actually backing up the resources. So when we throw the Power Wave, frame 1 of Power Wave, when it first activates, it adds a little bit to your max meter. Or not max meter. Well, that doesn't. I think max meter is only on hit. You get a little bit of max meter on hit. You get a lot of max meter on taking a hit. But the activation gives you super meter. Gives you like half of the super meter that you'd be awarded, or a third, or whatever. I forget what I calculated it at. That unfortunately can cause a glitch, where if you have almost 1 bar of meter, and you activate Power Wave, and it gives you that bar, then you can cara-cancel into the EX move without having had that bar originally when you tried to activate it the first time. So that was a glitch, and this is how I fixed that. So every time you do a move that's not an override, it backs it up. And then every time you do an override, it resets your meter back to what it was before that initial special move activated. Or, I mean, you could technically do this with any move, because the override system is ambiguous, but in this case I'm only applying it to EX activations. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't hear the follower chimes anymore. I should just have that window up. Tanspriter. That's who it was. Thank you, Tanspriter. I gotta get, I thought that chat used to post in there, in chat when somebody followed. So I've been keeping my eye on chat, but I haven't seen anything pop up. It's pain. I changed my whole setup and now I can't, because I don't hear the jingles when they come in. Like, the bits will show up in chat. I'm surprised the follows don't, though. Maybe I can program ScrubBot to announce that. Oh yeah, only on subs and bits for chat? Yeah, figures. Maybe I'll make ScrubBot say something when somebody follows. I think that would be a good way to keep track of that. ScrubBot needs a whole overhaul anyway. I just don't have like 3 weeks to dedicate to do the overhaul. Anyway, thank you very much. So that's the backup and the restore of the resources, and it just keeps everything in check, so there's no glitch on that front. Jump cancel, we're not worried about that. Doesn't have anything to do with it here. Okay, so now if the attack type is an animation, because again you could do a jump cancel, or like a block cancel, or something like that. And that's down here, so basic move like a super jump cancel ends up activating the super jump code, but we're not worried about that because these are EX attacks. They're full animated attacks. So it does start the attack, sends all the animation name, all the properties to down here where it goes through and does all the animation calls and all that. But after that, remember we saved whether or not this was an override. If it was an override, we've got to do something special here. And to explain that, I'm going to have to show the animation files again. So Power Wave, Light. Here you notice, again, these animation events. Like this is the voice one. But here's the important one: load hitboxes. When the animation is loaded by the animation controller, it immediately loads the hitboxes associated with that. And that's at frame 0. That's important. Very important. Then it applies, you know, the cancel window. Then it does the voice. You know, later here, I think this is actually shooting the projectile. Yeah, this is spawn projectile. Play a sound effect. So why is that important? Well, if you get the frame 3, and then you go to Power Wave EX, I think this is the one, and then we start at frame 3, well, that's great, except you skipped the event that said load hitboxes, and play the voice clip and create the activation spark. You would have skipped that if you just skipped all the way to the 3rd frame. So how do we fix that? Because obviously that's not what we're doing. If you noticed before, let me maximize that again. We press light punch and it starts the light power wave. We press heavy punch, boom, there's that EX spark. It's been spawned on frame 3. See? 3 out of 53. How did I get it to spawn there? And you don't see it because the hitboxes aren't there to see. I mean, I can turn them on. I don't think they're any different though. Oh, you know what would be a great... Here, let's switch to Ryu. It's actually a really good example. If I show the hitboxes, it'll show exactly what I'm talking about. Oh good, we got a good stage for this. Okay, so we do a Shoryuken this time, right? Notice he's got a little bit of a hurt box on the bottom, but his whole body is upper body is invincible. And he jumps up and does his thing. Okay. Then EX, here's the difference. Full invincibility from frame 1. He's got no... And that wasn't a Kara, that was just a straight up activation. He's got no vulnerability for the startup in the EX. So now you're thinking, well, hold on a minute. Let's make sure that's showing. Well, what happens when you Kara? Well, and this is the interesting part. Light Shoryuken frame 1, frame 2. Look, it's got the vulnerability. Now let's hold down the other button. Vulnerability is gone, and the EX effects appear. So it had to change the hitboxes again on frame 3, or you can do it, you know, 1 frame here, and then 2nd frame we press the button, and there's frame 2 with the new hitboxes that have been loaded, and so on. So I can't skip frame 0 or 1 or 2. What if there's animation events there? The solution is simple in theory, but it took a little while to get this to work correctly. So what you want to do is when you load the attack animation, which is what this does for the EX, you want to say, hey, was this an override move? And if it was, we want to turn root motion off. So what is root motion? Root motion is when you do a move and there's motion baked into the animation. And that's what causes Ryu to go forward there. It's what causes Ryu to go up here. Well, up and forward. It's what moves Ryu through the animation. And I can change that in the editor. That's what root motion is. So we want to back up the setting of what root motion was on, because it may or may have not been on depending on the configuration of the object. So we just want to see what was it, store it here. And we want to turn it off for the animation controller. Then, remember where we captured how far along is this animation already playing? And we save that. we're going to update the animation at that same time. So if only one frame transpired, we want to load the EX animation and then apply that 1 frame or 2 frames or 3 frames, whatever it happens to be at that point. And that's where they match up when it transitions from one to the other. And then at the end we reinstate whatever root motion settings were currently active at the time. So this prevents Ryu from moving when that EX animation is actually starting at 0, but it's getting fast forwarded. It is actually hyperplaying from frame 0 or keyframe 0 to 1 to 2 or to 1 or to whatever the transition point would be. And that way, if you have root motion on, he'll actually move during that. So you'll get a hyper extended super range Shoryuken. And I probably can show that, to be honest. Let's comment this out. I haven't tried this, but I'm sure it's gonna end up in a super fast, high range Shoryuken when we cara-cancel it. So yeah, forward, down, forward. Shoryuken heavy for frame 1, frame 2. In EX, boom, and you see how he stepped forward again. He stepped forward almost as much as he did in that first one. And he steps forward again, and again, and again. Look how far that was. It's because when that first update hit, it stored the momentum of all those 3 frames and pushed him all in 1 frame. If that makes any sense. So that's why you have to turn the root motion off. Run through the animation so it loads the hitboxes and gets you to a point that you want to be at. And then you go back and turn it on so that the move continues on as normal. That's the huge trick here. Because you have to hit all of those animation events to load the hitboxes, to start the sound effects, to show the effects, all that stuff. And when it works, man. It goes good. So you may be thinking, okay, there's a little concern here though. If my button presses aren't on point, I've got up to 2 frames of being vulnerable when I really wanted this EX for this full body invincibility. And yeah, that is an issue. That's just how it is with this kind of system. There's no way to prevent that from happening at that point. The good news, however, because this can happen with anything, and this is a good example because this particular attack does have instant invulnerable frames. So if Terry knocks me down, I don't know if I can get him to do that. You know what, let's switch to Ken. Or the opponent to Ken. We'll keep Ryu, but we'll make Ken the opponent. The attack that he's programmed to use on Wake Up is Tatsu, which will knock me down. So... okay, and then the idea is to say, oh, I want to get him off me. I want to do an EX Shoryuken to get him off me on Wake Up. So, yeah. Oh, hold on, let me turn... there, the frames are back on. So Ryu's going to start to get up, and I'm going to put in the command for Shoryuken and press the button when he comes to the ground. Okay, so here it is. I got 1 frame of vulnerability, 2 frames of vulnerability, I hit the second button, and now only the 3rd frame is invulnerable. So you could say, oh, I wanted to do an EX on Wake Up to protect myself, but I didn't hit the buttons right at the right time, so I got kind of punished for not having good execution. And while on paper that's true, here's the dirty secret. Notice when I press that button, and I'll slow it down here, forward, down, down, forward, forward. Heavy punch. I have not stood up yet, but that command will be waiting to activate. I did it too soon. Let's do it again. Of course I did it too soon. Okay. Okay. Down, down, forward, forward. Down, down, forward, forward. And then heavy punch. I did it. Nope. Okay. I did it within time. Notice I pressed that button like 11 frames ago, probably more like 10 frames ago. But that super came out. So you have this giant buffer when you're doing a wake-up situation. Or even though I didn't press the button anywhere remotely close to the point of when I actually stood up on the ground able to take an action, it happened anyway. Well, guess what? EX attacks are the same way. They've got a big buffer on them. So shouldn't be worried about this scenario being a problem with that. Forward, down, down, forward. Punch on one frame, heavy punch on another frame, and guess what? It will come out, even though they weren't in the same frame, because it buffered it in, and it waited until Ryu stood fully up to do it. So there's no real issue here. The biggest issue is if you decided to do it out in neutral. And the situations where you might want to do that are at points where, hold on, let me turn auto card. Oh, nope. They're probably already stunned anyway, and you're just doing a follow-up attack. Or you're doing a frame trap, in which case they wouldn't have been able to hit you at that moment anyway. The only time you're really vulnerable is if you're doing a run-up YOLO EX Shoryu. And yeah, they can probably trip you if you don't hit the buttons in the right order. They could probably trip you doing that. But that situation is so unlikely that it's not worth worrying about. It's not worth sacrificing 2 frames of input latency to make that not an issue. Because, yeah, when you have 2 frames input latency, it looks into the future of the input buffer and then it activates the EX on the frame that the light Shoryuken or the heavy Shoryuken would have activated. So you get a flawless coverage in frame data. But is that worth the entire game being set down 2 frames? I don't think so. It plays way too good to sacrifice it for one situation out of like 5 that's going to involve that. And only animations that have that invincibility anyway. So the EX Tatsu doesn't have that problem because the startup frames are basically the same anyway, with all the same hitboxes. So you do have that. Not really much of an issue for most moves. And again, all EX moves are like this now. So see, I didn't even... Oh shit, I walked back, you can't see now. But they were on different lines. Yeah, see, these were on different lines. My max activation was on different lines. So it can hit anybody. So you have to have that. You have to have that leniency in there. Otherwise, your game won't necessarily be playable unless you're an ultra champion. And I don't mean ultra as in Street Fighter 4. I mean just a very high-skilled player. And you don't want moves being basic moves like an EX move to be locked out to only like, you know, 0.5% of your player base. It's ridiculous. You don't want that. And I think the first game that would have this, because they were the first ones with EX, would be Street Fighter 3. And they do have a little bit of leniency. I'm not sure if it works exactly the same way that I've set it up. I've heard that it's 2 frames, but I don't know if that means that it's 2 frames after the initial activation, or if it's 2 frames total, meaning the first frame that you press the punch button and then the second frame you press the kick. And they do that with the grabs and all that. So I'm not sure if it's exactly the same that way, but other games have done that since then. Because again, it doesn't sacrifice input latency to do it. That's the huge boon. That's what you want to minimize, because there's already going to be latency in the game itself, just from the way that Unity's engine works, just the way that Microsoft's Windows works, from taking input from a USB device and passing it along to the program at a certain time, you know, translating that signal into something usable and then passing it through the game engine. That takes time, and that's all latency. And then a lot of games now have more latency because they've got more layers of software to go through. Even like a PS4, the controller has to generate the signal. The PS4's hardware has to capture the signal through the Bluetooth. Then it's got to use the firmware to translate the signal into some form of data. And then it sends it to the software layer, which sends it to the game program to interpret as something else. And all that takes time. Like back in the day, it was a much more simple system. You think of like the NES or the Super NES, it's a wired signal. It comes in, they throw it. It literally just maps it straight to a RAM buffer somewhere, and you just read the values off whenever you want. So there's a lot less steps in between there. And then input latency, again, is further exacerbated by when you see the actual image on screen. In Windows games, if it's running in window mode, which this certainly is, this is running in the editor, it has to wait an extra frame because it's using like a desktop render mode. Now you can get a full screen mode, which, depending on how it's set up, might have a reduction of an input delay, but it might not. So when you go into, and League of Legends players will know what I'm talking about specifically, when you go to borderless full screen mode, meaning it takes up the full screen, but you can move your mouse out of that monitor and onto another monitor. Of course, you can't see me doing that right now because you only seen one monitor, but if you move it from one monitor to the other, it lets you do that. And you click on another window and Windows won't freak out and try to reset the resolution. Everything's all hunky-dory, but really what that's doing, it's running the game in windowed mode. It just doesn't have this border up on top or border on the bottom. It doesn't have the buttons here on the top right. It's just straight up windowed mode, but it's just mapped to the full size of the monitor. And there are settings you can do to make that happen, and that's Unity's default mode. So to get around that, you want to use what they call dedicated full screen mode. And Unity does have that capability, and Pocket Fighter actually right now has that. So you can set that in the graphic settings to do dedicated full screen mode. Or in the shortcut, and it won't work here because I'm in the editor, but so you normally know Alt and Enter. There's a shortcut to change from full screen to windowed mode in a lot of applications. So if you do Alt-Enter, it'll put you in full screen window borderless. But if you do Alt-Shift-Enter, it'll take you into full screen dedicated mode. So you don't have to go to the options to do it. It'll just do it with that shortcut. Now I programmed that specifically. I don't know if any other games have done something like that out there. But that was something I'm like, well, I really would like to be able to go into dedicated mode whenever I want to, without having to go to the menu, like you would in any other game application that allows that shortcut of Alt and Enter. So that's a handy little trick. Now I know that's in the how to play document, but I know from all the people in the Discord that come in and all the people on Twitter, y'all don't read that because it's all spelled out in there, and everybody keeps asking me the question. What's my default controls? How do I switch to full screen mode? Well, guess what? That how to play, it's all in there. It tells you the shortcuts, secrets, all that stuff. So go read that. But just so you know, it's the Alt, Shift, and Enter. Yeah, quality of life. I thought it was it was easier to test with for sure, and I just thought people who were concerned about input delay and stuff like that, which most fighting game fans are, might as well just put it in there. Why not? So, along those lines, the time it takes to send it to render in Windows and then render to the monitor, you got that extra step in there. If you do the dedicated one, it cuts out the frame of delay that's caused by window rendering as opposed to full screen rendering. And then VSync, you can get a faster image if you don't use VSync. I've added that option in there as well. You can turn VSync off, although it looks terrible, so I wouldn't. That causes screen tearing, and you can go look that up. I'm sure explaining it is a little weird. You just have to see an example of it. So if you go Google screen tearing, you'll find an example. I'm sure there's YouTube videos on it. You'll understand immediately when you see it what screen tearing is. But it doesn't wait for the monitor to say, okay, it's time to draw the image. It'll just do it. And I think it only really takes effect if you're in full screen dedicated mode to turn off VSync. I don't think it really has much of an effect if you're in windowed mode. Could be wrong. But I think because when you're in windowed mode, Microsoft Windows is controlling when things draw to the screen, so you're not going to get any benefit out of that, I think. I don't think it would actually work, because the windowed mode drawing would override it, so to speak. So anyway, that was the whole goal of all of this, is to make it as least laggy as possible. Because it wasn't terrible. Some people might have said it was terrible, but in a general sense, it wasn't god-awful the way that it was. But you'll agree, if you play the old version, when the new version comes out, play the old version for a couple minutes. Like, just go into training mode and start to like jump around and stuff, and then load up the new one, and you'll see the difference. You'll absolutely feel the difference, I guarantee it. It's quite substantial. I just can't show it to you. You have to feel it. Just seeing it here doesn't do anything. Now some like Nothing Exus, he popped in one of the stream when I did the I turned the input buffer off and I was doing the card grabs and stuff, and he actually picked it up. I mean, he's a top player. You know, he goes to Evo and shit, and he's tournament organizer for Emo. Emo. Oh my god, Evo, not Emo. Ah. My mouth is drying up here talking too much. So he's like, you know, so he knows his shit, and he was saying, like, just watching it, him having had tried the game, but him just watching the stream and hearing the button presses, and he could tell. He's like, oh yeah, it sounds like it's more responsive. So that's yeah, Emo. Emo 2020, here we go. We're gonna make it, boys. Oh, it's so bad. But yeah, he could even tell just by hearing the button presses and seeing the action on screen. He's like, oh yeah, it even sounds and looks more responsive. Or it sounds, rather, because you can't tell with the visual. But he heard, like, you know, the button presses being closer to the action scene on screen, and that's what I want. And it absolutely is worth it. You'll see when it comes out. It's absolutely worth all this change. It plays, I wouldn't say it plays like a dream. I'm sure there's more we could do to decrease the latency. I would say at this point, I'm probably putting my foot in my mouth, but if I had to guess, I would say that we're probably at 5 or 4 frames of input delay at this point, where it was closer to 6 or 7 before. Because I played Street Fighter V after having worked on this game for a while and like testing out moves and stuff, and Street Fighter V felt a little bit laggier, and this is back when it was still 8 frames of delay. So I would guess that we were at 6 or 7, because Street Fighter V just felt just a tiny tad bit laggier. So So I could believe that it was that 8-frame lag. So we were under that, I believe, just kind of anecdotally thinking about it. But now, so whatever it was, if it was 7 or 6 minus 2 would give us to either 5 or 4. And I believe that. I think it feels like that. When you're in dedicated full screen mode. Obviously I'm not right now. But when you're in dedicated full screen mode, it feels like a 4 or 5. And that's about what Street Fighter 4 was anyway. I think Street Fighter 4 was 4 or 5. So that's fine. I'm satisfied with that if we can get it down that low, which I think we have. But I'm gonna have to have someone actually like really test it. I don't have the equipment to really test it. I want to know where it stacks up. So I'm gonna see if I can farm it out to the specialists and see if they can get a reading on it. And I would really like to know where it is exactly. But I bet it's 4 or 5. So anyway, I guess that's kind of my spiel about about input lag and all this cara-cancel crap that took forever to do. So hopefully that was an understandable explanation, because it's quite a lot to take in all at once. Like if you're familiar with it, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. If you're familiar with all the concepts. But man, if you're just walking into it, it's like, what the heck is he talking about? I tried to give an explanation of each step and why it's really important. Actually, one thing that I think I glossed over, I said I was going to go over later. Oh yeah, here. So, and this has less to do with the functionality of getting the cara-cancel to work, but more to fix a glitch that I found while doing it. Didn't understand a word. Well, that's alright. That's alright. It's crazy, man. You could write up a whole friggin' thesis about this, and I'm pretty sure someone has. Oh man, I'm trying to think of what his name was. He's the French FGC guy. I'm pretty sure he's French. Lloyd? Or Loic? L-O-I-C? I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm terrible at pronouncing other languages, so I very much apologize. He wrote, I think he compiled all that information that he knew about latency and the programming side of it and what causes the input latency. And he wrote up like a whole website documenting all that information. And you could just go on there and read page after page after page. I think it covered some rollback stuff as well, and you could spend a whole afternoon and night looking at that. I'm not sure where it is though. I'd have to go look it up, unfortunately. I should have that bookmarked. I don't know, maybe do I? Hold on, let me see. Let's see, do I have that bookmarked? Let me look real quick. No, I don't think I do. Nope, I'm sorry. He made the Street Fighter 5 simulator, so it's that guy, if you know who I'm talking about. And he had a whole thing up about all the input delay and how it works. So, you know what I'll do? I'll find it and I'll post it in the Discord. So hit up the Discord after, and I'll post that. And I guess on YouTube and LBRY, when I get to uploading this episode, I'll hopefully remember to put the link into this video description, and then you can see it there. So check that out when that goes up, or come on over to the Discord. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I could literally talk about this for like 6-7 hours, but no one's gonna sit here for me just reading off line by line what everything does. I think so. If you're really interested in that, you're probably better off reading Loic's write-up of that anyway. Anyway, so what is this? This last move allowance list. So some characters have moves that have blacklists. meaning that there are certain things you can do and there's certain things you can't do on a cancel. And one of the easy ones here is power charge. You can do power dunk, or you can do crack shoot, or come on. There. Or you can do power geyser. But that's your limitation. Unless you max cancel it, then you can do whatever the hell you want off of it. But as is, you've only got a couple choices. So how is that accomplished? Well, when the attack actually hits, and it's under hitboxes, power charge. We'll take the light one. The light and heavy have the same cancel options. So here, you'll notice, here's the conditions. It has to be on hit, and you have a cancel window of 2 frames to activate your special. And so we've got Power Dunk EX. We get the alternate activation for it. The 6th version. That means the forward version, if you think of the numpad notation. Yeah, Power Dunk Heavy 6th version. Light 6 and Light 6 version. You've got Geyser Heavy and Light. You've got Crack Shoot EX Heavy and Light. And you've got, oh yeah, Rising Tackle EX Heavy and Light. But you'll notice here that because this is clicked, exclude all moves on the whitelist, meaning everything here is whitelisted. Anything not here is automatically blacklisted without having to list it explicitly. Because you don't want to say, allow Burn Knuckle. Doesn't work. So you don't want that to be the case. Now you get into a weird situation with that. So if we go to Power Wave EX Round Wave. Oh, that's the body animation. We want the projectile. So here. Oh wait, you know what? No, hold on. It's not in this file. Because it's not a direct physical hit, I actually put it as an animation cancel. Come on. In the animation itself. So Power Wave EX version 2 is here, right? Yes. So this is Round Wave. When it gets here, it opens up a special cancel list. And here's how it works. I say I allow special and super attacks here with 12 frames of window to do them. However, I go down here to the blacklist and I say forbidden moves Power Wave EX. So you can't do Power Wave EX into itself. Oh, sorry, let me restart that. You can do Power Wave EX into other specials, any special, pretty much. Or, or EXs. So the idea is that it's a very flexible kind of move. You can basically do anything out of it. It's a good way to confirm moves, but also to send things back. So if we choose Terry for both, and I'll be Orange Terry, and he'll be Green Terry. We'll go to Osaka. It'll probably be easy to see on this background. So that Terry is set to shoot Power Wave back. So you can stop it. And not only can you stop it, you can send one back because you can cancel this into it. Or you can mount a different attack. Get a quick activation while stopping his projectile. Things like that. Oh, you gotta do it with the right timing. But the one thing you can't do is 2 power wave EXs, because this blacklist prohibits it from canceling into itself, right? So here's the problem. That's the solution to the initial problem. Here's the problem. When you do a normal power wave and then cara it into an EX power wave, well, you've bypassed that, right? Because you can go into an EX one, boom, and then you can buffer in another normal power wave. Here he goes, normal power wave for 2 frames. And then we could hold the second button down again, and we would get an EX. Because the cancel properties said that you can't go into power wave EX. You didn't. You went into power wave light, and then you cara-canceled from power wave light to EX, so you broke that rule. Now it doesn't work here because I fixed it, but it was an issue, and I can show it to you actually. If I remove this blacklist issue. See, now I can do it, because I took the blacklist off. I can do it 3 times, come on. Yeah, there we go. It's easier in the corner because he won't move from it. Yeah, so see, you can do it 3 times in a row. Which means that when you did it once here, okay, say there's the EX. The problem was you could then do it again here. So that's the first frame of power wave light, second frame, and then you could EX it again, and so on and so forth. So even though this blacklist was in here, which I've restored now, make sure it works right. Oh. Yeah, alright, it's working. So you could bypass this blacklist. It was an issue. You could just cara-cancel it. If you did it frame perfect, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't activate. But you could cara-cancel it into the EX version and bypass that. So what I had to do is when a move is activated, we want to, if it's a cancel, we want to capture the current cancel window properties that allowed this move to activate. In this case, it would be the light power wave. So whatever allowed the light power wave to activate, we want to cache that into a copy. If it's not a cancel, then we don't worry about it. We just reset it because we don't need it. If you're in neutral, you can do anything anyway as long as the move is allowed. So that's not a problem. So when it is a cancel, we save it. In this case, we canceled from EX power wave to light power wave. And what happens is when we, let's see, where do we use this? Gotta get used somewhere. Oh, you know where it is? It's actually before the activation. So I gotta bump up the hierarchy here for a second to find out where we are. Okay, so does it pass external conditions? If we are enabling overrides, then it checks to see if it's a registered override, which means that it's in... where is it? Means that it's in this file. Like we've seen before, that it's actually registered as an override move. So Power Wave Light has Power Wave EX as an override move. And it would look in there and say, hey, are you in there? Yeah, alright, cool. Alright, we're going to store that. And we're going to say, let's see, down. Where is it? Was it past this point? I guess it must have been. Wait, no. Hold on. Here it is. I'm sorry. When it checks, when it checks if it is a registered move, I'll say, hey, does a move exist to check? Cool. Were you inside that move? Cool. But the last move allowed list, which is what we cached before, we want to check the blacklist and see if you're contained inside of it. It can't be, so this exclamation point means not. So not contained in the blacklist, cannot be blocked by the previous move activation, and that's what stops it. It looks back and it says, hey, in the specific case of an override, were you able to cancel into that the last time that you activated a move? And if the answer is no, then you can't do it, and that's what prevents this from happening. So instead, you get a light power wave or a heavy power wave. If you hit them in the same frame, I think it's a heavy, because heavies have priority over light buttons. If you Kara it, then it just whatever button was first in the Kara, attempted Kara activation. So in there it was light, because this was the initial EX, and so I hit the light and then the heavy button, so the light one came out. And that's how I fixed that. That was a trip, man. Trying to get that thing set up, that was a pain. But it all worked out. All of it worked out really good. I'm very happy with the results. I'd cross my fingers, and I'm saying this knowing that there is, of course, something out there. But I don't think there's any obvious glitches left to fix on it. I think I've pretty much gone through all the scenarios that looked like they needed adjusting. So, cross my fingers. Hopefully that's true. I'm pretty sure the moment this demo gets out there, day one, somebody's going to find some bullshit that I didn't even think was possible. But, you know, for now, it looks like all the things I can think of, like the Phantom EX meter and all that stuff, all seems to be fixed. Which actually, I can show you the Phantom EX meter. It's pretty funny. So, let me use... I have to use an EX move to lose some meter. Okay, then we gotta go back to neutral. So I'm gonna do a power wave with light, and look, it gave you a little bit of meter. Just like I said, you activate, you get a little bit of meter. But I'm gonna say, no, I want to Kara that. I wanted an EX, so I'm Karaing it into the EX. And it took that little bit of meter away, and then took the whole EX bar. So it undoes that meter gain. Because again, like we said, the glitch was that you could have almost a bar, and then activate Power Wave to gain that meter, and then cara-cancel it into an EX to spend that meter, and that's a glitch. So, an average hero says, hey, what's up? Welcome. So that was the glitch in motion. You can see that, but like I said, I changed it so that here that here it is. That's what this restore and backup's for. So whenever you activate a move, you back up the resources that it was at, and then if it was an override, you restore the backup of the super and max meters. I do the max meters too because some moves actually use max meter, which is like the max activation is a move, but it has to consume max meter to do it. So the push block and the armor mode, same deal. They consume a max meter, so I have to back up both. That's just how it goes. So that was all that, man. It took a little while to get all that in, but I'm super happy because it's working real good. It's really working good, and then you'll see it when the next thing comes out. You'll feel the difference. I know you will. So I have a theory that I want to go over since we're kind of done with that. Unless anybody's got questions, I'll happily answer if I am able to. One thing I wanted to postulate, and I gotta run this by a couple of experienced players too. Something that I was wondering about when it comes to landing on attacks. Actually, this would be a bad example because I actually changed Power Wave to fix this issue. So let me unfix the issue for a moment. So we're gonna go to the Power Wave projectile, and we're actually gonna make the hitbox very small. So we're gonna do a height of 4. So now you'll see the hitbox on the Power Wave is gonna be very tiny. See, where it's just on the floor. Here's the thing, though. Should you be able to block that? The reason this is a problem is that when you jump, and that's probably not going to hit in time, but look where his feet are. His feet aren't covered with a hurt box, and that's intentional. That's normal. So when he's almost, so you see that big gap where he snapped to the ground? When he landed, the hitbox went from here to here. If he lands in one frame on top of that, he could technically block that because he wasn't impacted by it. That was bad. Actually, shouldn't. Yeah, it should not let him do it because I programmed it not to let that happen. But previously, if you land on it, you were able to block it because it actually didn't connect with you in the last frame of your jump. Because again, let's see if this will be closer. Here's the thing. He's going to land on it, but the last frame of the jump's not going to connect. It's going to snap to the ground and then hit it. But here's the thing, when you land, you're pretty much back in neutral again, and you can block an incoming attack. Now, I programmed it so that's not possible, so that the first frame of landing, you cannot block an attack. But I'm wondering, is that appropriate? My initial conclusion was, yeah, no, you shouldn't be able to block that. You stepped on a landmine. You decided to jump and you landed on that thing. Right? So why would you get to block that? Now there's some nasty things you can do with that. What about here? Oh, I should use the light version. So here, he's going to land on this, right? He's been hit and he's doing his air recovery. Should he have been able to block that? In the most conventional way, with Street Fighter, yeah, you would be able to block that. If you were hit by an air normal. Now, getting hit with an air special is different. An air special knocks you down. But an air normal, let's make him stop throwing power waves. You land on your feet. You do a recovery. So should he be able to be hit out of that? Conventional Street Fighter says no. He should not. He should not be able to do that. I'm sorry. He should be able to block it. He should not be hit. I'm sorry. Correction on that. He should be able to block this. Because basically what you're doing here is setting up... you're setting up a setup, mix-up. So when you land, are you going to grab him? Are you going to attack him? No, I didn't time that right, so he was able to block it. See what I mean? It gets a little hairy. That's a little strange, though, that you can elect to jump on it, but you wouldn't be able to. Hold on. Oh my god! There. So you can elect to. You can jump on it by accident, but you can block it if you happen to get hit and then fall on it. Kind of strange, right? Alright, so chat says, not being able to block on the first frame of landing is like trip guard in Street Fighter 2, when you can get swept by an anti-air sweep or no. I don't know about Street Fighter 2, but I believe if you do a player-initiated jump, meaning that you yourself press the jump, and someone's waiting there, and they sweep, you're going to get hit. And you can actually see this here, I programmed that. You can't block that. Even if I put him to block everything. So standing, he's blocking everything. But in jump, if you time it so he lands on that hitbox, it'll hit. I can do it right. There, just like that. Now if he's already landed and he's not jumping yet, he's gonna block it. But if you make him land on that, it'll hit. And I think Third Strike does that. So if you jump into a sweep, you'll get hit. As long as it's meatied. If you meaty sweep someone when they jump in, you're gonna get hit. I'm pretty sure that works. But if you hit him in the air and do it, I don't think it works. Because again, they're trying to do the setup thing. So when you do this, you're thinking, oh, he's landing with me. What's he gonna do? Is he gonna grab me when I hit the ground? Or is he gonna try to hit? So you can set up a meaty. So here's a good example. That doesn't work. And that's standard Street Fighter. So I'm gonna slow that down so you can see it. I'm gonna hit him. And I'm gonna fall first. So as soon as I hit the ground, I want to do a 3 uppercut, a 3 HP, and you will see it will go right through him. There it is, because that move doesn't juggle, and he's allowed to safely land. So here's the thing. When he's on the ground, right here, this is a meaty, meaning I activated it so that as soon as he becomes vulnerable, he will be hit. I set that up. Now, if you can't block on the first frame, then that's going to get you every time. You can say that, oh, that's just gonna hit. Let's see if I can. Yeah, unavoidable combo. So the idea, I think, in Street Fighter is to make it so that doesn't happen, right? But does that mean that... Is that the right way to go? I think that might be. I think that might be. So if you jump on something, you've given up the right to block that. So if I throw this out and you happen to land on it, that's up to you. But then this has to also take place. So there has to be some code that says, hey, you can't be hit in this situation. I can time it, right? Yeah, like that. You can't be hit in that situation. I think that's the correct way to go. I haven't done the full-on research to see what's what. I think the music stopped, right? Yeah. Going in overtime just for a few minutes. I think that's the way it should be. Like when I think about it, I'm like, no, that sounds right. If they jump on it, let them eat it. Now I've done a little bit of research. Street Fighter V doesn't like to do that. If Nikali, his V trigger, or his V skill, his second V skill, shoots out a little thing that slowly creeps along the ground. If Ryu jumps on that, and you're holding down back, you block it. Interesting. I would say that if you jumped onto it, you don't have the right to block that. I don't think you should have the right to block that. Now, it does put you into a crumple state, Nikali's does. So maybe they're like, oh, it's a little too strong. But I don't know, man. If you jumped on it, I think that's your own fault, and you should suffer the consequence of that. You should not be able to block that. That's my feeling on it. Now, of course, here, I think this was 20 before, right? Yeah, 20. So, as a temporary measure, I did increase the size of the power wave so that it hit a little more consistently when you tried to jump on it. Because if you notice, oh, let me get it right here. He landed first. Damn it! I negative edged it. There. If you notice, when you get hit in the air with it, it should make him bounce. But if it was too low, the power wave wasn't high enough, you'd hit it when you hit the ground, and then you'd see, like before, he would do a crouching or standing hurt pose. So I'm thinking what the code could do is say if it's the first frame of landing, then we're going to treat the reaction, the hit reaction, to that of what happens if you get hit out of the air instead. Because if you're on the ground, it's this reaction. Let me turn off this guard. You get this reaction. You don't want them to be able to land on it and then it do that. Even when they land on it, it should do that all the time. Whether they landed on it or they had the first or last frame of jump on it, just to make it consistent. Honestly, I think that's the appropriate way to go. I want to run it by people, of course. That's why I'm discussing it here. To be like, hey, you know, I don't have all the answers. But I think, game theory-wise, I think it makes sense. You jump on that thing, that's your fault, man. You shouldn't have jumped. Don't jump. Why are you jumping? I really think that that's the way it should be. And then if you happen to hit someone, you don't want that to be the case. You don't want them to be able to land on it. Because that destroys the whole mix-up game. That makes this unavoidable. And you don't want that. It makes it just a free combo. There's no recourse there. It's just boom. Oh, as long as you time it right. Like to get a fucking meaty out of it, and that's it. You got it. There's no way out of it. See? He wouldn't be able to defend that. And you know that it hit on the ground. Because if it hits in the air, you don't get that cancel. It only hits in the air if he's on the ground. The music stopped again. Here, we'll go back to the first track. You only get the cancel if they're on the ground. If they're in the air, you don't get it. And that's more of a balancing thing that I implemented. So you can't do anything there except max cancel. But you can't just do this and then do another thing. You know what I mean? It don't work that way. You could EX. That's a different move though, so to speak. Hold on. Oh, come on. Okay, we're just gonna cut right to the chase. Oh my god. Oh, stupid fingers. Stupid fingers. There. I can do the EX one and that wall bounces, so that's different. But I can't cancel the EX one. But I can cancel the ground one. Into whatever I want. Oh, that's right. Just in case you didn't know. High Angle Geyser is an EX move in this game. It's actually the EX Power Dunk. So it's just Power Dunk with both the kicks. Get you that. It's pretty good. I think it is, at least. Since you can max cancel EX moves if he blocks it. You can tell if it hit or not. And then you can max cancel to get out of it for free. So that's a hit. Block. Block. Hell, you could do it raw and still see it. Block. Because he's got two hits there. Boom, boom. Those both are cancelable. That one and that one. Oh, wrong one. See? So I can see the block or the hit. We blocking mad now. Oh. Of course I screwed it up. There, and then you let it go when you see it hit. Or if you see it hit, rather. So that helps. Hopefully that'll be a useful move kind of expect it to be, but we'll see. And if you don't cancel it though, it's very, very, very minus. You do not want to screw it up. But it's got pretty good damage, and it's got that good confirmability to it. So anyway, I have to ruminate on that question though. I really think that this should make you invulnerable on land, but just jumping, you should just eat it, whatever it is. Apparently Street Fighter V doesn't agree on some accounts. And I did testing, and I think a sweep will hit on the first frame in Street Fighter V and knock you down. But it won't hit in the air, so it'll be like a meaty kind of setup. Kind of like this. You can tell when it hits early, because they'll bounce out of it because they're still in the air. But if it hits them on the ground, you got them. I think it makes sense, but maybe there's reason that some games don't do it. Yeah, just eat it. You just eat it. I don't know. Like I said, Nikali can shoot down that projectile. So like a sweep's one thing. That's a physical attack. But maybe they treat projectiles different. That you can't land on a projectile in Street Fighter V. Because Nikali's B-Skill 2 is a projectile. And it creeps along the ground. And Ryu can block it. He can jump right into it. Just jumps right into it. I jumped right in, I held down back, and boom, it blocked it as soon as he landed. And I'm like, that's weird. It doesn't look like he should be able to do it. He jumped onto it. It's like jumping on a landmine. You think you're going to jump on a landmine, down back that thing? No, you're not. You're going to eat it. You're just going to eat it. So why would you do that? That doesn't make sense to me. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe there's some reason for it, and I just haven't thought about it yet, but I think they're just being too lenient on it. What if you have a character that can put down a landmine, even? Like I don't know. I'm not sure if Snake in Brawl or Ultimate works this way. I think when he buries something, he has to activate it manually, right? Or does it activate as soon as you get near it? When he buries the landmine. That's why I'm thinking a landmine. But say if it activates as soon as you get next to it, like you should just get hit if you stepped on it. If you walk into it or you land on it from a jump, you should take that hit. Come on, don't step on the landmine, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm being too elitist. I tell you to get good. Don't step on the goddamn landmine. Just get good. I don't know, that to me seems to be the way to do it. As a designer thinking about it, I'm like, no, you should just take that hit. So, like I say, I'm gonna see what you guys think. I mean, does that make sense to you guys? It makes sense to me. But I wanna get some people's input on that and see really, maybe there's a reason I just don't understand yet. And there's been a few things. Again, I don't have all the answers. This project is for me to learn as much as anyone else. I'm trying to just learn everything the same way just by doing it. I figure if I do it, I'll get the answers one way or another as I go through the journey. And that's what it's all about. So, alright, we'll actually end it there. We didn't get to do anything else. It was mostly programming theory and questions. So, but that's fine. That's just as good as episode as any. So that saved me because I wasn't really sure what to do after I was done explaining things. So I don't have to worry about that. We're all set, right? Alright. So, I want to thank everybody for hanging out with me, showing up, asking questions, the whole thing. We've got a Discord. Put the link in chat right there. If you're watching this on LBRY or YouTube after the fact, when we're not live, the recording version, the link for that will be down below. And we've got a Patreon. So the Patreon supports me and my personal efforts and all the stuff that I do here on the channel, all the projects that I'm involved in. It supports my effort into those projects. So we've got a whole bunch of patrons to read off. Everybody gets a shout out because you all stuck with me through my sick period. So we've got Zombie Killer, we've got Miguel Tabasco, we've got Rui Luis, we've got Uncle Roy, who came in earlier. We got Mike Cruz, we got Taryn Williams, Corporal Chungus, Bryce Nagalingam, AJ, Anthony Moniz, assuming I'm saying that correctly, D-Money107, and LD Walker. So thank you very much for hanging out. Link for that's down below. You can get early release builds. You can actually test I just put up the build Sunday with all the latency changes, so you can actually see for yourself how the latency has changed and how much it's improved. So that's a special bonus for patrons. And so that's pretty much it. Hopefully there won't be any more power outages and we'll be back on schedule. Everything should be alright. But we'll be streaming on Sunday if everything goes well. And that'll be around 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then again Monday for more Pocket Fighter EX. So Sunday's going to be gameplay stuff. And then, so just like Let's Plays and stuff. And Monday is Pocket Fighter EX development every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's pretty much it. So I gotta get out of here. I'll see you guys later and scrub out.